Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 145, and I'm continuing the stories from 1001 Arabian Nights. Now you might remember that the genie had convinced the fisherman to allow him to come out of the bottle again. He promised to make the fisherman rich. The fisherman liked this idea, so he'd taken the lid off, and the genie appeared again, smoke filling the sky and then condensing again and becoming the genie straight in front of him. And when he did that, the fisherman had backed off a little bit because it was an incredibly impressive event when the smoke would come out of the vase. And the genie was large in form. So he had taken a few steps back. Now, the minute the genie condensed his form, he took a step back and he kicked the vase out into the ocean, which frightened the fisherman quite a bit. The fisherman backed up more in the sand. The genie turned to him and said, "Don't worry. Don't worry, I did this. I knew it would scare you, but don't worry, I will keep to my word." And the genie said, "Now pick up your nets and follow me." And he gave the fisherman a moment to gather his nets back up, bundle them up. And the genie turned and began to walk. And the fisherman followed. And they walked straight into town and through the town. Now, I will tell you that the genie had assumed a form that was not as, eye-catching as he had first appeared in the sand. And he looked somewhat normal, though clothed in a way that people still took notice of. And here the fisherman is tagging along behind him, carrying his nets, and people looked. Now, as they passed through town, the genie made his way up this hill and over the other side and through this little valley and then up over another hill that was almost more like a mountain. And the fisherman, having lived there all of his life, did not recognize this place that they were in. But here they went anyway. Now remember, the genie had told the fisherman that he was going to make him rich. Now, they went over this hill, and as they reached the top and could look down the other side, the fisherman looked onto a lake that he had never seen before. It was big lake. And they go down the other side and they come to the shore of this lake. And the lake, it's standing between four mountains. And the fisherman is looking around and wondering where the heck he is. He's never seen this before. And it's only, not even a full day's march away from the town that he's lived in all his life. Well, the genie stops and said, "Okay, cast your net." So the fisherman, he throws his net in, and he's, convinced that he's going to have a good catch because there's fish that he can see in the waters, the very clear waters of this lake. And so he casts his net in and he pulls it in, and there's four fish in there. There are four different colors and four different types. White. One is white, one is blue, one is red, and one is yellow. And they all look different, but they all look fabulous. And the fisherman is excited because he's thinking, wow, I'm going to be able to sell these fish for quite a bit of money. Now the genie turns to the fisherman and says, "Here's what I want you to do. First of all, do not cast your net more than once a day into this lake. Don't take any more fish than you catch in that one throw. These fish, I want you to take to the Sultan in the palace. He will give you a large sum of money for them, more than you have ever had before. Do you understand? Genie said, yes, I do. Fine, said the genie. Or the fisherman said, yes, I do. The genie stood there. He stomped his foot upon the ground. And with that, the earth opened up and he disappeared. And the fisherman was standing there now by himself, resolved to follow the genie's instructions completely. So he gathered up his fish, his nets, and he made his way back over the hill and toward the town. And when he got into the town, he went directly to the palace of the Sultan to sell the fish. Now, he was brought in to the Sultan's presence. The Sultan was just amazed to see these fish. He'd never seen anything like them. He admired them for quite some time. And after a bit, he turned to his first vizier that was standing nearby and said, take these to the cook. Take these to the cook that the Greek emperor sent to me, and have her cook these up. And so the first vizier took the fish and went directly to the cook himself to give the instructions about their cooking from the Sultan. To the fisherman he turned, and to another attendant that was standing close by, he said, give this man 400 gold pieces. Thank you. So the fisherman was handed 400 gold pieces. He'd never had so much money in his entire life. He turned, prostrating himself before the Sultan before he did, and turned and walked out of the palace, shaking his head from side to side as to what had just happened. The genie had been right. Now, I will tell you that the fisherman made his way home, and he took care of his affairs like he had never done before, and made sure that his wife and children had more than they had ever needed before, more than they ever needed. His life changed completely. They bought a new dwelling. They lived, well, in a completely different style from that day on. But let us leave the fisherman and return to the kitchen. Now, the first vizier had given the fish to the cook. It said that the Sultan wanted them cooked for a meal immediately. And so the cook, she took these fish and she placed them in the pan with some oil and put them over the fire and began to cook them. Now, when she felt that they had cooked enough on one side, she went to the pan, she turned them over, and as she did so, an amazing thing happened. The walls of the kitchen opened up, and a princess came out. She looked like she was an Egyptian princess. The way her hair was done. She had bangs across her head and dark black locks. The crown on her head with jewels within it, rubies and emeralds, sapphires. She had a string of pearls around her neck, huge pearls. Earrings on, bracelets, ankle bracelets, and beautiful silken robes that had a flowery design over them. The cook had never seen anything like this, but I mean, the wall opening up, this maiden like that appearing, and she stepped back in astonishment. this princess that had appeared, she had a rod of myrtle in her hand as well. And she went over to the pan and she struck the fish with her myrtle wand. And she said, "Are you doing your job?" And the fish did not respond in any way. So she hit them again and said, "Are you doing your job?" And the fish then, all of them, their heads rose up off the pan. And they said, "We are doing our job. If you pay your debts, we pay our debts. If you conquer, we conquer. If you fly, we will fly." And with that, the princess overturned the pan, the fish falling into the burning embers, and then went out through the wall. The wall closed up. And the cook stood there in amazement, trying to collect herself. When she finally had, she went over and saw that the fish had turned into blackened, unedible, carcasses. And when she saw this, she just fell onto the floor sobbing. What was she to do now? She had ruined the Sultan's meal. And she knew that no one would believe what had just happened. No one. How could anyone? As she lay there sobbing, the first vizier came in to collect the fish for the Sultan. And we will leave the story there as Scheherazade would have. Okay, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for joining.